So we're making pretty good progress. We're able to log in and sign up and specify whether our new user is a rider or a driver. We'll be adding some key features in this video though, and of course I'm going to set this as a challenge, but this is what we're heading for. So first off, we're adding a new view controller with a title and a logout button. And if we log out, that takes us back to the login screen, which I'll just show you I've changed slightly so that when we switch to the login mode, then we lose the rider or driver option because the user will already have specified which one they are. So asking them again is a little confusing. Okay, so now let's log back in as Rob Rider. And then you can see we've got our map view here, which is centered on the user's location and updates with a pin where that user's location is. Then the user has a button here, which at the moment is on a cancel Uber mode because over in Pass server, we have a rider request active. So the rider request has a username and a location, which is of course the user's current location. And this actually keeps track of the user's location as well. So it updates constantly. You can see what it's doing there. Each time the user's location updates, then that updates here. So you can see a change of location there as well. So we've got a live location on Pass server. And if we cancel the Uber, then that deletes the request. So it's no longer there. And of course, if you then call an Uber, that brings a request back with that location. So pretty simple. We've got a map and we've got a call and cancel Uber button, and we're saving that rider request over on Pass dashboard. As always though, it's a little more complicated than it looks, but I'm sure you can handle the challenge. Best of luck. Let's see how it goes. So I'll begin by jumping over to main storyboard and creating a new view controller for our rider. So it's just going to be a normal view controller. It's being very strict about being zoomed into a particular level. There we go, and we'll start by just setting up all of our segues. So we'll have a show rider view controller segue. And then let's set up our view controller to do the necessary redirect. So we want to do this when the user is signed in. So we'll need to check if the user is a driver or a rider. And we'll do that by setting up an isDriver variable, which is going to be equal to user isDriver as a Boolean. And if that's the case, then we can use isDriver as a Boolean. So if they're a driver, we'll do nothing for the moment. But if they're not, we'll redirect them to the rider view controller. So we'll do that with a perform segue with identifier. Go back over to get the identifier. Copy that to the keyboard and paste in there. And the sender is the view controller or self, and we need to use self to access the perform segue method. And I'm actually just going to change this to make it more universal. We'll use the current PF user to work out whether the user is a driver or a rider. And let's do the same thing here. And we'll also do it in the viewDidAppear method. And we'll do that check there as well. So if we run that now, we're actually logged in as a driver at the moment, I believe. So we'll sign up again. As we're logged in as a driver, it's not going to do any kind of redirect, so we can re-sign up as a rider, and then we should see that transformation taking place. So let's switch over to rider, and I'll actually just rename the user so it's clear that this is our rider that we're setting up here, and then we'll sign that user up, and there we go. So we've now been redirected to the new view controller, and always worth checking. There we go, with our new Rob rider with isDriver is false. Excellent. Okay, so now then let's set up our new view controller. So we'll need a new file, of course, to be the new viewcontroller.swift, and we'll call this the rider view controller. Create that, and we'll just link up that to our new view controller. There we go. All right, so next I'm going to bring in a navigation bar just up the top there. There we go. Which is going to have Uber at the top, and then we'll add in a quick log out button. We'll put that there. And this is just going to segue to the initial view controller. And we'll call it logout segue. And as we've done before in the rider view controller, we'll grab the prepare for segue method, and we'll check to see if the segue identifier is equal to logout segue. Then we'll take the PF user. Oh, not yet, because we need to import paths. Take the PF user and log them out. There we go. So let's do a quick check. First off, to check that the initial redirect is working. So when we run the app with the user already logged in, it logs in and redirects to the new view controller, and also check that the logout button works as well. So there we go. There's the login redirect working, and logout, that works great as well. And then when we log in, let's just check Rob rider login, and that works fine. That has just made me think though, I'm going to make a slight alteration to the login screen, and we're going to make it so that when we switch to the login, the rider and driver option disappears, because the user has already chosen by that point whether they're a rider or a driver. So we don't want them to think that they have the choice again. So that's pretty easy to do. So when we switch sign up mode to login mode, then we hide all of those. So we're going to hide the switch first off. So that was the user sign up switch. We're going to set is hidden to true. Then we're going to do the same for the labels, but we will need outlets for those labels. So let's just create those. So rider label, and same for the driver label. And then we'll just set those to hidden too. So rider label is hidden, is equal to true. and same for driver label. And then, of course, we need to do the opposite for all of those when we switch back to sign up mode. Okay, so let's just check one more time that that all works, and then we can finally start building our rider view controller, which is actually pretty simple. It's just a map and a call an Uber button. So here we are. When we switch to login mode, you can see the option disappears. Switch to sign up mode and it's back. Wonderful. So let's go over to login and log in again as Rob Rider, and there we go. Okay, so now let's add our map to our Uber screen. So this is our MapKit view. So we're going to add it there and we'll stretch it out to make it pretty large. And then underneath the map, we'll have our single call an Uber button. Okay, so that's it for our view controller for now. So let's get the rider view controller and add outlets for our map and an action for our call an Uber button, and we'll likely need an outlet for it as well. Remember to call it something different to call an Uber. Okay. Now for some code. So first off, we're going to need to import MapKit, and we're going to need mk map view delegate. So that should be enough to set up our map initially. So let's have a quick look, just make sure our map is displaying properly, and then we'll get it to zoom in on the user's location. And there it is. Wonderful. So it's approximately correct, but we wanted to be more precise than that. So we'll use the built-in location functions this time. So we'll need CL location manager delegate, and we'll need to jump over to info.plist and add a row and scroll down to privacy location when in use description. And I'll continue my rather terse descriptions. That's why we need their location. And then let's follow the process that we haven't done for a while, but hopefully you remember. We'll start by creating a location manager, which is going to be a CL location manager. And then we set up the location manager in viewDidLoad. So we do that using location manager.delegate equals self. Then we set the desired accuracy to be KCL location accuracy best. Then we request in use authorization. And finally, we start updating the location. Okay, so now we should be getting the location, of course. To do anything with that location, we need to use did update locations. There it is. And I'm feeling fairly confident, so I'm going to go straight into putting our location on the map. I'm also going to show you another way of getting the user's location. So we used the locations array last time, which is a perfectly fine way to do it, but we can also use the manager itself. So we can use the CL location manager and get the location from that. Dot coordinate, just like that. And in fact, let's make it an if let, just in case there is a problem with the location. So then let's set up the center of our map. That's going to be this location. So it's going to be a CL location coordinate 2D. And we're going to create that from a latitude and a longitude. So the latitude is going to be location.latitude. And the longitude is going to be location.longitude. Then we'll set the region. This is going to be an MK coordinate region with a center of center and a span. We're going to just make the span right here. So MK coordinate span with a latitude delta of 0.01. We're going to be zoomed in here, and a longitude delta of 0.01 as well. And then let's take our map and set the region. And we'll make it animated, because why not? Okay, I think that's enough for one try. So let's just run that. We should now find that we're asked for the user's location, and then when we give it, the map zooms in on our current location. Here we go. Yep. So let's allow that. It's definitely doing something. And there we go. So I'm currently pretty near Apple headquarters by the looks of it. Great. So I'm just going to make that a little bit more precise by putting an annotation, a pin, onto the map. And the location here is actually going to be the same as the center of the map. So let's create a new annotation, which is going to be an MK point annotation. It's going to have a coordinate of center. It's going to have a title of your location, and that's it. So we just add it to the map. In the way that we've seen before. Great. One quick thing before we do that though, as the user moves around, they're going to get more and more of these annotations, and we only really want them to have the latest one at any one time. So let's remove all the annotations from the map before we add any new ones. So we'll remove all the annotations, and we can get those from self.map.annotations. So this just clears the map of all existing annotations. Okay, let's take a look. So now we should have an annotation with our user's location precisely located right in the middle of the map. And there it is. There's our pin moving slowly down the street there. Wonderful. So now it's time to call an Uber. So we need to spend a moment thinking about what we actually want our Uber request to look like. So it's going to be very simple from a user point of view. They're going to press the call an Uber button, and that's going to send the location to our parse server and save that so that our riders can have a look at it and decide whether they want to accept that user. So let's jump over to our call an Uber method up here. And let's create an object called rider request, which is going to be a PF object with a class name of rider request. So at this point, all we really need is the username of the current user and the location. So let's save both of those. So we'll set rider request username to be the current user. Current user's username. And we'll set the location to be equal to the current location. So to get that, we're going to need to be able to access this somehow. So I'm going to have a central user location variable, which is going to have a type of CL location coordinate 2D. There we go. And I'm actually going to replace this center with that user location. Just to keep things simple, so we have as few variables as possible. And then here, so we'll now be able to access that from anywhere. And I think it's actually worth a check here to make sure that user location is not nil, because it really could be if they haven't allowed us to view their location, or if their GPS is off, or something else has gone wrong. Okay. So we can't have a nil value of CL location coordinate 2D. So let's just set it up as initially 0, 0. And instead of checking that it's equal to nil, we'll check that the latitude is not 0 and that the longitude is not 0. Okay. The chances of the user being at precisely 0, 0 are negligible anyway. There's always going to be some decimal places in their location. And here, because this is a pass object, we'll create a pass geopoint. And we'll create that from a latitude of user location dot latitude and a longitude of user location dot longitude. Okay. Then we'll take our rider request and save it in the background with a block. Success and error. And for now, if it's successful, we'll just print called an Uber. And if not, we'll display an error to the user. So let's grab our display alert method and copy it over there. And we'll just use could not call Uber, please try again. And we'll need a self there. And I'll just pop one of those in as well if we couldn't get their location. So if for any reason we can't get their location, cannot detect your location. Okay, So let's just try that out. If all goes well, we should be able to save an object called a rider request. In fact, let's just stop that because our class name should begin with a capital R. So we'll save that as a rider request with a capital R. And this particular instance of it, of course, just has a small r. Okay, here we go. So let's call an Uber. And there we go. You may have seen called an Uber. It only appeared for a moment. But if we refresh our dashboard with any luck, we'll see a new object type. And there it is, rider request. Wonderful. And you can see it's got public read and write there as well, which is going to be very useful in the next video. And we've got the username and we've got the location. Wonderful. So a couple of additions that we're going to need. So first off, we don't want users to be able to call unlimited Ubers. That's going to cause problems if we get these overlaps here. So let's change our code. But if we're successful, we set the call an Uber button to have a title of cancel Uber for the default control state. And now then we're going to need to set up a variable to keep track of whether we've got an active request for an Uber going or not. So let's set up a variable called rider request active, which is initially going to be true. And then when the call an Uber button is pressed, we'll check to see if there is a rider request active. And if there isn't, then we'll do our process of setting one up. And if there is, then we'll cancel that request. So to cancel the request, we'll first update the call an Uber button back again to call an Uber. We'll set rider request active back to false. And in fact here we'll set rider request active to true. And actually let's update this here so that we set that up to cancel the Uber immediately. We're not waiting for the callback. And then if we get a problem, then we'll set the rider request active back to false and reset the title of the button as well, with of course a couple of selfs in there. Okay, so now all that we need to do is delete any active requests from this user. So we'll do that with a query. This is going to be a PF query with a class name of rider request. And the only thing we need to specify is a where key of username equal to our current user's username. So if they are able to create multiple requests, which they shouldn't be, but if they are, then they will all be cancelled this way. And we'll just need to unwrap that. There we go. And then we'll take our query and find objects in background with our block. So then we've got our array of objects and our error. And I'm just going to ignore the error for now create a variable called rider requests, which is going to be equal to objects. And if that exists, then we're going to loop through it. But actually, we're going to get an object out of that. Oops, and I need a let there. There we go. Then finally, we need to check to see if we can create a rider request from our object when we try to cast it as a PF object. And if we can, we'll take rider request and delete it in the background. There we go. And oh, it's already a PF object. Okay. So actually, we can just take our rider request and then delete it because it will always be a PF object if it exists. Okay. Right. So let's give that a try. So we should now be able to create new rider requests as before. But when we do, it changes to a different mode and allows us to delete rider requests. And there we go. So we're now back to cancel Uber. And let's just go and check. We should have removed all of those. There we go. Wonderful. So we can now call and cancel Ubers. Let's just check that that does work. Yep. So I can now call one and that creates an object. Canceling deletes that object. Wonderful. So we can now call and cancel an Uber. You might want to have some sort of message just saying that that's been successful or the cancellation was successful or something else. But that is as far as we'll go for calling and cancelling. But there is one more thing I'd like to do before we finish this video, and that is to update the user's location as they go along on our pass server over here. So I don't want the location staying as the initial location when they call the Uber. If they're moving, we need to keep up with them. So that's fairly easy to do. When we're getting the user's location here, all we need to do is update the user's location on pass. So we can do that in the same way that we cancelled the request. So I'm just going to copy the code down to there. So we want to do the same query. We want to find all requests. There should only be one, but we'll find all of them where the username is equal to the current username. And instead of deleting, we want to set the rider request location to be equal to a PF geopoint created from the user's current location. So that's user location dot latitude and user location dot longitude. And then we'll just save that in the background. Okay, so now we should have essentially a live version of the user location, and of course we'll need self there because we're in a closure. But now, as long as the user has their app open, then this will keep track of their location. Okay, so let's call an Uber. There we go. And then if we refresh, so the location there has a 248 at the end. If we refresh it again, it has 603. So you can see that's updating Not exactly every second, but reasonably regularly. I may need to bring the simulator back into focus again. There we go. Oh, I think the user's actually stopped. Looks like they're at a traffic lights, or maybe they're stopping at McDonald's there. But this is updating now as we go along. If you wanted to be careful of battery life, you may want to check that that happens every, say, 10 seconds or even every minute if you don't want to be constantly updating the user's location. Okay, one final thing that I just realized, when we ran the app again, it didn't pick up that we had an active request in place. So let's do a little check on view_did_load to see if we have an active request. We can actually use this again. Let's go down to view_did_load. Here we go. So we'll do a PF query, and here we don't actually care about what those objects are. We just want to know whether we have one or not. So if we do, we need to update rider request active to be true, and we need to set the call an Uber button title not to call an Uber, but cancel Uber. There we go. So let's just check that. Now, if we run that, it should do a check. To see if we have a request active. And if we do, you can see that's updated to cancel Uber. And in fact, I'm going to go one step further, and I'm not going to display that button until we've checked to see if we have a request active. So let's take our call an Uber button and set is hidden to be true. And then we'll unhide it when this request is finished. There we go. With a self there. And you might want to show some kind of message saying that it's just detecting whether or not there is an active request in process, but I'm just going to leave that blank for now. And there we go. So there's nothing there until it gets the request, and there we go. So we've got to our cancel Uber. Wonderful. Let's just check and make sure that that location has updated. And there we go. It definitely has. Brilliant. So that's as far as we're going to go on the rider view controller side. Now it's time to set up the driver view controller so that they can view active rider requests and accept them if they want to. We'll do all of that in the next video.